Rebecca, we love you so much. I'm so excited to meet you in real life.
Thank you. I was really looking forward to meet you guys all as well.
You're like our, artistic hero. So it's so fun to have an opportunity to do this. Thank you, Jennifer, for making it happen.
Wait, Tetine, how did you first find Rebecca? How did you first connect?
Oh, yeah. So I have it in my slides.
Oh, you do? Okay, show me. Yeah. As a team, like, this is kind of our first time all meeting live, and I'm so excited that we're all here together. So, Tetine, why don't you start us off? Would you please introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about your research?
Sure. Aloha. I'm Tetine Sentell. I'm a professor here at the University of Hawaiʻi at Mānoa in public health. I'm the department chair of public health, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Public Health Residence Project, which is a really exciting interdisciplinary collaborative synthesis of literature, engagement with literature, dissemination of literature project we've been doing now for several years that this team is assembled as part of, and I'm just been so grateful to be part of that. And it's really about sharing opportunities for strength-based public health promotion, especially around culturally and regionally relevant physical activity, and how that's meaningful to people as individuals, as families, as communities, and as collectives.
Well, what are some examples of those kind of like culturally relevant activities, just so people have an idea?
So in Hawaii, some examples would be hula, spearfishing, outrigger canoe paddling, for instance. And then, of course, in many other places, there are resonance and activities from culturally relevant dance, folk dances, regional relevant dances, practices in the water, practices in the land.
Esme, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Esme Yokooji. I'm a Master's of Public Health student at UH Mānoa, and I am the graduate research assistant on this project. I'm in the NHIH, or Native Hawaiian and Indigenous Health Specialty at UH. And yeah, in my free time, I am someone who participates in these activities. I do Okinawan dance. I like to volunteer in Aina, doing things like kalo planting and just conservation and restoration work in our natural habitats here in Hawaii. So that's what initially drew me to this project, is just the real life connection and like seeing how community engages with these things. So mahalo for having us.
Rebecca, you are coming here from London. This is fun. London, Hawaii, and I'm in San Diego. Rebecca, tell me a little about your journey as an artist.
Hi, my name is Sunnu Rebecca Choi. I'm an illustrator and printmaker based in London, but I'm originally from South Korea, lived in Canada and United States, and now ended up in London somehow. And then I used to be a fashion designer in New York and Toronto, but then I decided to change my career, become an illustrator. So right now I'm specializing in editorial illustration as well as children's book illustration, mostly focusing on like editorial illustration wise, mostly focusing on medical, scientific, as well as psychologies, and I work with a lot of like different university magazines as well. And yeah.
Thank you. And so everyone knows I did design the website. I had so much fun doing this project because there are so many visual elements to all of those activities and to the people who are engaging with them. Like, this is about people.
So I am so happy to be here because we've been working on this international, collaborative project for so many years. And one of the things we really wanted to do was make it so beautiful and really make it so it could be disseminated and shared in ways that like inspire and engage and delight people. And so I developed this logo as we began consolidating and thinking about disseminating in collaboration with some partners, and in particular with my husband and all who helped build it. So thank you, Craig. It was a meaningful logo. We felt it was really important. I have this slide here to really show we were inspired by the Hawaiian colors and the deep ocean from the shore to the sunset, and really thinking about the levels of influence and the social ecological model, which is our theoretical influence in the background from a public health perspective, and thinking about the ripple effects and the waves that grow and build and move across. and really thinking about the place to connect the project and the connections and the links, the ripples, the reflections. So we had this endowed chair and this opportunity. And so I was, really reflecting and thinking about this, and this absolutely beautiful art came in my alumni magazine. Can you see how beautiful that is? It's so pretty. I even have the one I pulled out of my alumni magazine, and it was Rebecca's artwork. And it was so beautiful, and it really had the feeling of what we were thinking about, of these reflections, of these perspectives. You can see it has a lot of depth and story to the artwork, as well as just being so peaceful and beautiful and meaningful. And so that's how I found the artwork, and had no idea how to engage with artwork or what to do in this particular way, if it was contractable through a university, through our funds. But anyway, just like cold emailed through the link in the website. And she has a beautiful website if you've seen it. And through that started a conversation that has just been really so fruitful and so exciting. And just, I'm so honored to be part of this. And in collaboration also with Esme and others who've really helped support and build the artwork into spaces that we can use it for all the things we want it to do.
Oh, that is amazing. I'm so happy that we had a chance to hear that kind of origin story, because I feel like there's so many possibilities that we just don't know exist. As researchers, as academics, even as artists, what can we do to better connect and help shape our ideas together? Rebecca, how did you feel when Tetine first reached out? Is this a kind of project that you've done in the past?
No, actually, it was really interesting because I haven't really worked with other universities before. So what university? It's
Middlebury.
Middlebury magazine. So that was my first alumni magazine that I worked with the university. And then when Tetine emailed me, I was like, oh, I actually didn't know it was released already. So that's how I knew that a magazine has been issued. and yeah, so that was really interesting. And then since then, I've been working with a lot of universities in United States. So that opened the new opportunity for me as well.
And so I'm curious, Tetine, what about art helps bring the community together? Why invest in this kind of visual element?
Of course, art inspires us, engages us, pulls us in, makes us think, is important to us as humans, as people in the world. But I also think in academia, we do a lot of intricate, thoughtful, engaged practices and activities that often are not accessible because they're deep inside words and publications, sometimes even behind paywalls. And I think there is a lot of intricacy and story in, even peer-reviewed academic journal papers, much less the smaller, summaries of them. And so it just felt like this was such an opportunity relative to the work now, right? To disseminate it, to share it, to put it, to think about how it's helpful, how it's good for mental health, how it's engaging, how it's good for physical health, how it's good for strength. So all that was sort of built in the background of how to share out. This was so important to disseminate in communities and to people. And then with that joy, right? This is a strength-based activity. It's a thing that brings people together, makes them happy, makes them joyful, connect with each other. And I think that's one of the things art can do. And just so really, it felt like such a nice synergy and such an amazing opportunity to really tie all those things together.
Oh, you brought up joy. And that's something that I really get, not just from the beautiful illustrations that have been customized to represent different activities that the project is researching, but also in the new version of the logo, in the thoughtfulness of how it all comes together through, you have created brochures, event flyers, physical things and materials to help people engage in person. And that artwork also creates that same warmth and feeling online. Rebecca, I'm curious about your kind of process working on what feels like something really representative of community. What was that process like for creating the artwork for this project?
The process-wise, whenever I receive a brief, I start with the research, understanding how each activity is carried out, what equipment is used, and learning about the cultural context, and from clothing to landscapes. And that process helped me make the imagery as accurate and respectful as possible. Also, like every time I create the illustration, my goal was to highlight public health at the community level, showcasing people coming together, whether it's a mother and a child, a family, or a wider community group. I wanted the artwork to capture the moment and that sense of connection and shared care. I believe illustration has the power to bring people closer and help them resonate more deeply with the subject matter. And I think that was my main goal in creating those illustrations. So usually when I'm working on the brief, I come up with 3 different concepts or ideas for each illustration. So whenever, like if I'm working on the canoe activity, like I come up with like 3 different composition or like a concept or focusing on like something different for each illustration for the client to choose from. And that's how I start creating the art. And then once we decide like which concept we're going to go with, and then I go like render the illustration. My rendering process is quite interesting because I'm a printmaker as well. So I create all the textures using printmaking techniques, either monoprinting, etching, or like any kind of things that I can get hands on. And I scan them in and then in terms of the final illustration, I use a Procreate on iPad, and then bring all the textures together on iPad. So it's a mix of digital and the analog process.
That's why it's so tactile. It's like you can really feel it, even through the like internet. It's really beautiful that way.
I felt the same way though. When I first saw the illustrations, I was like, oh, it's almost like it's painted on like washi paper.
Yeah.
Like watercolor on washi. It's so beautiful.
You sometimes use the watercolor and gouache or acrylic. So I like in my studio, I have a bunch of papers like with all different kinds of textures and colors, which I can just use on any kind of illustration.
That's so cool.
It is. It's so beautiful. Like, I just love how it all works together, and it really has such a feeling about it. Like, your work is so specifically you, but then you're also using it so collaboratively to like share other people's vision, which is not an easy thing to do, I think, as an artist. And I really appreciate the collaborativeness with which you've, approached these, the first one for, as the initial one, as like thinking about how to share and showcase what we were trying to do, and then very specifically in a community, in a regional context, in an actual, like, it's a specific way, it's a specific bay, right? You're coming into, and the landscape, like you mentioned, and the practice and the movement and the arms, and then really thinking about, who is in the canoe and what they're wearing. And then as we have thought about it for, the other resonating activities, to be willing and, offer the opportunity for us to really be in collaborative conversation, even as the artwork is pretty far along, to be like, oh no, we've gotten, comments from our community members that this isn't correct, or we need to fix this. And so I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting learning process for me as well, because a lot of, like, I knew about like briefly know about like samba or Tongan, but I didn't really specifically know about like their clothing or like how it works and how the body moves, things like that. So it was, for me, it was a really, really good opportunity to learn about different activities as well.
Yeah, and I think that's actually exactly the project, right? In the sense that like each one has not only resonance across, but these unique, very specific pieces of engagement, the land, with the ocean, with movements, particular, with stories and songs and clothing from the community and care. And so the opportunity to showcase that, and to showcase that like very specifically about in place for like people doing it with each other as families and as communities, not specifically as like show, not as a show, but as a practice in community. And that has been really important. And as we share and tell the story of the artwork, that's a really important piece of the thing, of the, of our sharing of what you've been doing as well. So aloha.
I also want to say, Rebecca, I used to work in Haia at the fish pond that like kind of portrays that bay. And it was so funny because when we had the first kind of in-person activity, It actually took place in Haia, but in the back of the valley. And it was so wonderful because when we showed the work to the people that participated, they're like, oh, that's Haia, that's here. Like they were able to instantly recognize from the art. And I think that, you know, even people that weren't, you know, affiliated with the project were interested and curious. And I think the art was like a big draw, seeing a place, recognizing it, feeling properly represented. So I just wanted to say thank you for that because that was so
And also,
wonderful.
yeah, also thank you for like all the feedback that Tetine gives. Also like our illustrations were reviewed by experts, and that's how we can actually get like a correct imagery and then representative of the place as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you know, the funders of this, the endowed chair that I hold that has allowed this opportunity, it's from a family enterprise, and it's all been sort of in the background. I mentioned my husband helping with this. Like, there's a lot of family connections because Mele, my beloved colleague who has done this project with me, certainly has helped connect to some of the cultural and regional experts, but in particular on the Haia like ridgeline, her husband Scott is a geologist, and he was like, "This ridgeline is not correct. Like you have to go down. You know, it's like it happens like this, not like that." And he drew a line for the ridgeline, so it was proper. So that's the level of detail, like, and actually cultural consultation and regional conference consultation that's been possible through this collaborative project.
It sounds like a lot of people were involved in the art making, and that's something that's probably really unexpected for folks who are listening to this. So it was the two of you, as well as it sounds like experts.
Yeah. So as Rebecca mentioned, we had the brief, we have a conversation, and then she would send 3 sort of options of things, and then those 3 options we would run by people who practice those activities, who work in the region, who engage in the practice. So that certainly included my colleague Mele, who's been part of this all along in every way, but also exactly people who paddle for the paddling one, people who participate in wild skating for the ones you'll see in a minute. We'll talk about and people who do samba, people do Tongan dance. And so exactly this. So out of the 3, then we've chosen a one to go with. And that one is really prioritized community, that it's about being with family or being with others to do practices that bring people joy together collaboratively in their real lives, right? That this is about, sometimes they are ceremony like at a wedding or at a party with a community, but they're not about a show. They're about a practice together in community. And so that's always been kind of in the background of the activities we've been showcasing. But then from those and from the one we've chosen, then she does a more developed artwork. And then from that more developed artwork, that's where we really are like, okay, well, this color or this clothes or like this line, or this is not how the arm would be, or this is not the like exact proper direction of the canoe relative to the shoreline. Like that level of detail has been really important and part of the, iterative conversation. And then we go back to consult and come back, so it's a very iterative process.
When you started the project, did you know kind of how long it would take to produce art using all of this feedback?
For me, I mean, that is kind of how the process of most of the work that I do works, where there's a lot of, we work a lot with community and in practice, and, public health is about that. So I would say for me, not a surprise, but I did feel really bad for Rebecca because I felt like it was a lot to ask the artist to like engage in sort of the academic consultation process at that level of detail. But she was a really good sport about it.
It was very interesting because I do like longer project or shorter project. Usually the book projects are very long. Sometimes it lasts from like 3 months minimum to 1 year or more than 1 year. But then editorial project usually ends within 2 weeks. So I think, this project was in between, I guess.
I appreciate that. And for folks who are listening, if you're considering working with an artist, asking about their timeline, but also considering who you need to bring into the conversation for that art is helpful up front so that you can talk about it together.
Could I just add like to that exact thing, which is that like as like, because of this project being so specific about culture and place and about those practices, it was like vital, and like we couldn't have done it otherwise, right? Because if the artwork for the practice doesn't make sense to the people participating, we shouldn't do that artwork at all, right? And so that was like built into this. I could imagine other scenarios where you wouldn't need quite such level of detail, because maybe you'd be talking about just a feeling or, you know, something to connect with this. But this was like so vital that we have that level of detail.
Esme, as someone who is using the art to create flyers and other kinds of, I would say marketing materials, but is it marketing materials?
Well, I would say, so my background is also in organizing, and that was where I had most of my social media video editing experiences, actually in making, for lack of a better word, propaganda. But in kind of trying to inculcate people and inform them. So somewhat a combination of like educational materials and kind of like, I think the goal of this project, as Tetine kind of spoke on, is just like to shine a light and a spotlight on these different activities, on these different researchers, on the work that they're doing and its value. I think for me, what I've really enjoyed about being a part of this team is how much Tetine specifically stresses like the importance of cultural competence and humility. And I think that understanding how specific everything is, understanding how tailored it is, really conceptualizing who our audience is, who's going to be benefited by, you know, our materials, is something that's really important to me, specifically being in Native Hawaiian and Indigenous health, because I think having more culturally, you know, tailored interventions, or even having more culturally tailored messaging, having artwork that is accurate, that people can recognize, that immediately draws them in, I think is really valuable and important. So it's been truly really fun, like honestly, to make materials and just experiment with the different kinds of things, whether it's like making a video intro or editing, you know, a logo for a flyer, or collaborating on a poster, or any manner of things. It's been a joy.
Tetine, what would you like folks to know about, I mean, so there's so many people out there who are like, I do want a website. I do want to have, you know, beautiful artwork for my events. I do want these things, but I don't know if it's worth my time as the PI. Like, you are the decision maker here. And so I'm curious, like, what made you know that this was worth it for you in terms of your energy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a conundrum of academic practice these days, actually, this like how we engage in the PR of the work we do in a sort of, you know, dissemination campaign generally. Like, so much of the people do so much valuable work that they don't, because of the own demands of academia, right, don't have the time, capacity, support system to help be sharing that out. So I guess I would advocate not for this to be something that individuals need to do only, like, because it isn't something an individual can do only. Like, was able to pull this together by the amazing collaboration, by being fortunate to have hold this endowed chair and being senior enough in my own career that the publication process or grant making process was not the only thing I really needed to prioritize relative to my own goals of my academic, like what I wanted to do with my career. And so it has been actually a joy and an honor to be part of this collaboration, to keep building it, to keep growing it, to engage in sharing it out, like Esme is saying. And dissemination materials might be one of the terms I might want to use for like some of the things we're doing, to think about how we're sharing out and why. What we want to do is think about how to build in the opportunity for innovative ways in which we showcase the work we do in academia, and in art being one of the fundamental ways in which we can share out, and then the art being collateral, like Esme is mentioning and we've talked about, and that, you know, Jennifer, is one of the great skills that you hold, is like how we share out the beautiful work that a, you know, artist achieves in collaboration with us, like Rebecca is doing, then in, you know, YouTube and LinkedIn, or, you know, in community and in handouts, right, and flyers. Like, how do we do that? That's certainly not something we learn in graduate school, but is in the background is all this important work that deserves to be showcased.
Oh, wonderful. Are there slides that you did not share that you want to be sure to get into the video? Is there anything else that we should be sure to talk about today?
Only that I think from what I've experienced, because a lot of what I do specifically focuses on Indigenous health, and what did this project was specifically trying to reach and elevate and focus on communities that have historically been marginalized, experience disparity, but coming from the perspective of like, how is culture a source of strength? How is connectivity to land and to heritage a source of strength? And I think that using art is something that reinforces that message, because a lot of times Indigenous arts and traditions, whether it's storytelling or even hula is considered an art form as well as a physical activity, you know, has been marginalized. So using art as a means to tell these stories and amplify these messages feels so right, and is like a source of resonance for me anyway, in engaging in this work.
Like so much of this project, the process was about discovery for me as well. Through this collaboration, I learned so much about the diverse cultural backgrounds behind each brief, and also me as a Korean Canadian based in London. Like I have so many different cultural diversity within me as well. So it was really valuable experience for me to work on those illustrations. And artistically, it also encouraged me to explore new colors and compositions that I never used before as well. So finding ways to express not just the activities itself, but the joy and vitality that shines through them, while highlighting the connection between people, community, and nature. It was really, really enjoyable working on this brief.
Well, I'm very excited for the art to come. I've never had such beautiful art packaged, like ready for me to consider for a website design. I felt really honored to be able to work with the thoughtfulness that I could tell everyone who was involved with this project put into the creation of these art pieces. And there's new ones that maybe, I guess they're kind of maybe going to be premiered on this video if they're not on the website first. And I'm very excited to share them with all of you. So Tetine, let's do your slides.
So this was the beautiful artwork we talked about before that I was inspired by. And then this is exactly like to showcase both the artwork itself and then the artwork, the initial one we've been talking about so much, the one, the paddling, the outrigger canoe paddling one. You can see the family, you can see Heiia in the background. And then you can also see how we used the artwork as a piece of the story we were telling, which was that we were doing various gatherings over the world, essentially last year, and that we were thinking about, you know, this was something we had note cards, we had a poster, we had small like business card size handouts to really share and tell the story about what we were doing. So the new artwork includes resonances specifically with this one. So, you know, this is based in Hawaii, in our community here. And then we wanted to really think about how this resonated in other places. So this is wild skating in Scandinavian lands. And we had feedback, for instance, specifically here in this one about the trees, that actually from our Swedish colleagues said, you know, no one would ever go out without a helmet. And so we put a helmet on the child because we were like, you know, that makes sense. You know, that's the cultural practice. Same with the backpack and the way she's holding her poles, that the backpack, they were like, we'd never go out into the wilderness without some sort of backpack or something to be safe. So again, really thinking about how communities engage in these practices in real life versus what you might see on a tourist brochure or something like this. So that was really important to us. Again, you can see the mom and her child. And then really dance is a really important culturally and regionally relevant, community relevant practice, you know, again, all over the world. And so dance, a lot of the research is in dance, specifically for so many different pieces of, you know, staving off dementia, Parkinson's, you know, community wellness, mental health. And so here we have our Tongan dance example we talked about earlier, and the samba dance example with input and collaboration from colleagues from Tonga and Brazil, specifically talking about, you know, what this might look like in practice and what this might be like. And so, for instance, in the samba one, at first we had these very elaborate headdresses and activities, and our colleagues said, well, you know, that's certainly we do that in Carnival and something, but that's not what you would see in a community. Like that's a special event for a different type of piece. And so if you want to think about how people would do these practices in real life, in community, it would, be more casual like this. And same, we talked a lot about Tonga, in the Tongan example, about the clothes, what that might look like, how people would be engaged, what would be respectful, what would be expected. That this is like a bit of a dressy event, but also a family event, and what that might look like, and how the arms are, the stories being told with the hands and the arms and the motions, and what music would be relevant. So you can see in the background a lot of those conversations. The last thing I just wanted to highlight is, as we talked about earlier, we have different logos to go with each one, right? Because the resonance is across, and the first one really started with the Hawaiian, sunset and colors, and then you can see these colors in the background are from some of these other places as well. So highlighting kind of that resonance across, that we really want to think about the colors and the schemes in terms of people's communities and specific places, which is to share, like we really talked about this, and I think Jennifer, you have an example, but just how we've been able to engage in our own activities and practices using this artwork because of Esme's skill set as well, and because of the capacities and the conversations, including with you, Jennifer, and the website, how to share out and showcase the conversations we've had with so many wonderful experts across the globe. And this really is just like such a tremendously collaborative project. And so that's really been a great joy of this project as well, is how to all, the strengths and experiences and skill sets that people bring to the table together, really thinking about, where we showcase that and how to do that, in the most beautiful, respectful, exciting, engaging way possible.
Yay. Thank you so much for recording this with me. I feel like you were all so excited to talk that it really is going to make for an engaging episode for people. And I really hope that it inspires other folks to consider collaborating with an artist, or even reaching out to Rebecca, because you're such a valuable resource for people. I love how much attention that you give to not just what needs to be communicated, but like who it's communicating with, and like who needs to be involved in the process. It's just beautiful. So thank you all for being here today. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, but thank you, Jennifer. You're a great visual communicator also, and I'm just really grateful for all the expertise you've brought to the story of the Public Health Resonance Project, and the capacity to share it out as well. Like those are skill sets I didn't have and didn't have access to either. And, really have been grateful for that as well. So just thank you. And again, for bringing us all together for this great opportunity. This is a great joy. It's been a great joy to me, and a great joy to meet Rebecca, to have Esme here, who's just been a joy as well. And Jennifer, thank you for all that you do for us as well. You also are a great joy.
Thank you so much.
Yay. All right.